Well, it's a $180 billion industry that goes ahead and employs 52 million people nationally, and also goes ahead and contributes to at least 6% of the GDP. You're talking about the real estate industry and the massive pressure it is right now because of the lockdown situation due to the pandemic that the entire world is facing, in India specifically. With the work from home model being adopted by companies across industries, what is now significant to understand is that there is a button that is going to be switched on, especially when it comes to real estate. We're talking about retail, we're talking about residential, and of course, commercial. And to discuss all that, a number of the stalwarts and bigwigs from the industry are being joined with me on the broadcast. I welcome, first of all, Ramesh Nair, who's the CEO and country head of John Lang LaSalle, Vinod Rohira, who's the MD and the CEO of K. Raheja Corp. Raj Menda also joins us on the broadcast. He's the corporate chairman of the RMZ Group, RMZ Corp. Rajesh Jaggi, who's the vice chairman, real estate Everstone Group, and Nayan Raheja, who's the executive chairperson of the Raheja Group. Welcome on the show, gentlemen. And my first question, of course, to you, Ramesh Nair. Is industrial warehousing and logistics going to be the silver lining that the industry is looking for?
Megha, in the short term, there is going to be a lot of companies who are going to be pressing the pause button, mainly because they want the lockdown to get over. Decision making will slow down a little bit. Speculative development also in the short term will short to medium term will come down a little bit. Decisions will slow down. Short term demand will also come down. But that's all in the short term. What we clearly think will happen in the industrial space, which is definitely as of today looking like it's the silver lining in the industry. Most companies today globally would look at diversification of production facilities. I think India will definitely benefit from that. There will be major changes of global supply chain. Every company globally would want less reliance on China. We believe e-commerce and online grocery demand, which is currently at 25% of the overall industrial demand. This will easily maybe double, maybe even become more. Many companies today are looking at nearshoring, mainly because of domestication of production. Now, where would you do your vital medicines, your vital pharma? Where would you manufacture it? Do you want to manufacture it at home? Do you want to manufacture it in some other country? During emergencies, what do you do? So that will again help domestic manufacturing. I think there would be a lot of automation happening on the industrial front, whether it's automated vehicles, robotics, contactless deliveries, all that. There will be a lot more technology inputs coming into the industrial space. This is also an opportunity for cold storage, which is a big asset class across the world, but within India has been quite small. I think this will also help the cold storage industry come to maturity. There would be a lot of pent-up demand, which is right now there, which will again help in the medium term. There are also some challenges like driver challenges. We've been talking to some of our clients, and they've been saying driver challenges, worker challenges, which is a big issue when it comes to industrial. I think this is India's golden opportunity in terms of Make in India. And we miss out on this opportunity. I think we may never get an opportunity again. And I think that's where the central government needs to partner with maybe 5 or 7 of the best state government and clearly drive Make in India within the country. I know there's been some talks about competition coming from countries like Vietnam or Malaysia. But look at some of these countries. Look at their labor force. Nothing compared to India. Look at their domestic economies. Very, very small. We are talking of a $2.6 trillion economy compared to 300, 400 billion economies in these countries. And also, one of the good things the government has done in the last 1 year is extremely aggressive tax rates, 15 to 17%, which again is very good. So these are some of the things I believe industrial will come out post-COVID as the big silver lining, industrial and warehousing real estate after this. So I'm quite bullish on the sector.
Absolutely. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Nair, because I want to ask you, you've talked a lot about industrial warehousing and logistics, but there are other aspects to the real estate market. But I want to get in Rajesh Jaggi over here, because Rajesh, you deal exactly with that, warehousing, industrial warehousing, and how exactly is this going to be a golden opportunity of sorts, as Mr. Nair has been talking about?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me on your show. Just, taking a cue from what Ramesh has said, the sector that we deal in is categorically divided among manufacturing and warehousing. These are two distinct clientele that cater to. On the warehousing, if you actually look at it, I think that in the short term, there is pent-up demand already coming because of the whole, everyone's been in lockdown and everyone's waiting to go and buy stuff which they don't have readily available because of most of the e-commerce and the 3PL companies are actually now building up their stocks to cater to the Diwali season. And they're already talking to us for temporary space. However, I believe that in the medium term, there would be a dip in the warehousing demand. And the reason for that's very simple is that we've actually missed out the entire season. So when I look at the demand versus supply, I'm not able to cater to the supply because I'm already hitting the monsoon. And by the time I actually build up cater to any of my clientele, it takes me to February of 2020. But in the long term, I'm very, very bullish on the warehousing space. I think a country as vast as India, we've been seeing over the last 2-3 years, the increase in the pent-up demand is tremendous. This sector has been growing 25% year on year. And in the long term, I see huge potential. When I just come on to the industrial side, that's where my concern is. What's been happening in the last 24 months with the Indian economy not faring very well, we actually have been seeing a sluggish demand in the manufacturing sector. Largely, we cater to the automobile sector, and that's been sluggish for the last 24 months. 2020, India, though it shows a positive GDP, which is only 0.4%, we need to kind of wait and watch whether there is pent-up demand from the industrial side. I think the issues that I foresee in the short and medium term is that can you run your manufacturing plants social distancing? Okay, is that something that you can really do? How do you function with I think India has a fantastic opportunity to attract investments from China, etc. However, I think there needs to be.
Have you been seeing opportunity currently already? Many of these FDIs coming in, or institutional investments pouring in from China into India.
So, I think that, there's been a little bit of a dampener because it is by the government has actually restricted the coming in from China. So that's something that we need to actually read the fine prints. But we are getting inquiries, from Chinese and other companies in Southeast Asia where they actually want to open up a secondary manufacturing facility. And we see that demand initially there, but we see that demand come. But I think by the time it fructifies, Megha, it will be 12 months because no one's going to really, kind of change manufacturing in like 2 to 3 months.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's shift our focus. I want to talk commercial. Of course, we're talking about commercial real estate. And Raj Menda, give us how the reset is going to heavily impact the commercial spaces, especially with the concept of work from home becoming a very, very viable model for the employee and the employer.
Okay, I think, first of all, let me clarify this work from home, which obviously everybody loves to get a full salary, lying down on his bed and doing his work. So that is where it originates from. It's nothing new as a concept, but let me tell you where it actually stemmed from, at least in India. Our IT minister, Mr. Prasad, actually enabled a specific section, which actually made the work to actually initially happen only in the offices, and not so much as a work from home. It is not, the work from home concept is not new, it's just that it's more prevalent because of COVID. So what he did is he actually made it a section where actually the employees, whether they are working from home or working from office, Now, once he made that clause and he's made it valid only till 31st of July, it has allowed all these multinationals to actually allow people to work from home. But once that clause is disabled on 31st July, they all have to actually work from offices, at least for the sensitive data part of it. So that's one part of it. The other part, we hear about companies like TCS talking about work from home. I make that as a joke. Of course, they have reversed most of that position. But I just make a joke is how long will TCS take to move its head office straight from India to a tax haven? And because everybody's working from home, they could be working in Poland, they could work in New Zealand and Australia for all they care, as long as they have internet bandwidth to connect to their servers in a tax haven. And we will lose all our tech companies out of India because if they make this work from home so easy as a business, there'll be nothing left in any part of the world. Everybody will be sitting in tax havens with their head offices. So that's just putting it this on a lighter vein. But having said that, if you look at from my company's point of view, I have found that during the lockdown we did about 20 transactions. The big and these all my clients are very large multinationals, and out of them 16 transactions were new transactions. The largest being about 5 lakhs. The second largest was about 2,70,000. These are the size of transactions which happened in the last 45 days. So it's not that the transactions have run away. These companies are large multinationals who are responsible, to understanding cost cutting and being in the right place, and they themselves have chosen to continue growing with us. Apart from that, 4 of our customers who lease expired, who obviously somewhere would have thought about should we now move from work from home or continue, actually renewed their leases at mark to market. So actually we don't see any slowdown happening because of work from home. Yes, very small companies, which of course we don't deal with them, who have a few handful of people, may still choose to work from home. A lot of these enterprises who are startups who need to save every bit of it, and security is not so much of a protocol for them. But large multinationals, trust me, when the kind of undertakings they sign with their clients, especially if they are cross-border with various governments, they get sued by their clients not only, and even governments pull them up if they behave irresponsibly with the client data and with the tech itself. So every company who has to be worried about. So it's not so easy to do it. That's the some exceptions.
Okay, Vinod, come in on this, especially when you talk about the commercial sector and the office spaces have been shrinking over the years. What's your comment on this?
I've not seen spaces shrink. I've actually seen spaces balloon up and increase. The reason that has happened is India has kind of really solidified their position in the global arena, from being a back office location to a front-end tech location for the world. We produce 4.6 million graduates a year from the STEM stream of education. No other country produces them with English-speaking skills, and the critical mass already created in India for technology knowledge is unbeatable with any other country. So even if you want to duplicate, you might bring machines and start manufacturing somewhere else. Can you lift up intellectual capital and take it to any country you want and start working from there? I doubt that. So having said that, if you're going to look at India in the long term, they are going to fortify further as a technology hub for the world. And they've demonstrated that especially in the months of March, April, and May, where you might say work from home and this and that and the other, but they've delivered services to the world undisturbed, where the world desperately needed them. And they've provided proof that they can deliver in the toughest of times. So I think the demand probably 3 quarters, 4 quarters from today will come back. In a couple of years, you look at India further solidifying its position. It's not shrunk in the last 10 years, it's only been going up. And I think
it's going to shrink now?
We will see demand drop for the next 2 quarters to 3 quarters for sure, because US businesses want to strategize, and there'll be a whole lot of predictions and descriptions and all of that, because it's free for all right now. I think if we are still navigating dark waters, we'll probably come out of this 2 quarters later and figure out where we stand as a country and how businesses take shape and form. Long term, India continues to be resilient, and I think it will grow.
Okay, Nair, let's talk residential. Of course, you are in the know of how residential is looking like. What is it that is going to impact? Obviously, there is going to be lesser amount of demand. Supply has been in excess even before COVID hit India. With this entire glut of oversupply and the demand that continues to just completely up, and this lockdown putting even so much more pressure on the residential sector. How's the market looking like? Do you think at the end of the day, people are going to be, if it's completely a buyer's market? It's like sellers just don't have any way out of it but to end up going into losses?
I wouldn't go as to say that people are going into losses, and also I think it's a misnomer that transactions have stopped in the market. Transactions continue to happen in the residential space.
Okay.
It is definitely changed, the user preferences or the buyer preferences. We are seeing a sharp turnaround. People are asking for larger apartments. They are looking for apartments which have a space which can be converted into a sort of a multi-purpose room or office. And we've seen reasonable amount of transactions. I wouldn't say it's impossible for it to be the same as what was happening earlier. But we are happy with the kind of transactions we've seen, in the COVID times.
Okay.
Another thing to note is that I think presently, it's not exactly okay to say, how this is going to shape out, because there's a lot of variables and unpredictables. The lockdown hasn't completely opened up in Delhi at the moment. The way of working is continually changing. I think the bigger question, is to see, whether there is a vaccine or some sort of medicine that comes out in the near future, because I think that's really going to steer the way forward for the future, and how any sector is going to fare in the times to come. At residential also, I think there's a bit of a trend change that we are seeing towards a ready to move in, which is a slightly safer investment. Larger apartments. I think one of the most important key factors is people who've been staying on rented accommodation since the past so many years. I think for the first time in their lives, they've realized, what it is to own your own home, in times of trouble. Rather than the landlord coming down.
The lowered prices that have been triggered because of the lockdown, and prior to that as well, because of the glut.
No, more importantly, because the safety that your own house comes with can never be replaced by, a rented house where, a landlord is, you're fighting with the landlord for the rent for the last 2-3 months or whatever.
Okay, Mr. Nair, shedding some light over here, especially when you talk about what's the juxtaposition. First of all, you do not have jobs. Layoffs are happening. Freezes are happening. You're not getting your payments, not getting your salaries on time. Vis-a-vis the residential market, how does this equilibrium get balanced out?
I think I will still be a little optimistic. There would be some challenges over the next 2-3 quarters, which is bound to happen. When somebody is hearing about his friends losing jobs, or his own salary getting cut, or his friend's salary getting cut, the last thing on his mind would be, let me go and buy a home next month. So those delays will happen. But I think as soon as things stabilize in the next 2-3 quarters, demand could kind of come back. And developers who want to kind of sell during even these times will have to offer a reasonably attractive price, and they will kind of do that, and they will start getting customers. But the good news again is on interest rates. We are seeing interest rates at an all-time low. The current market rates which SBI is offering is probably the lowest in the last 15 years. For affordable housing, the kind of government policies, PMAY, tax rebates, all that which the government is offering, this is probably the best we have seen for affordable homes. But the big worry is in terms of supply. Given all the liquidity challenges which is there in the market today, banks are not lending. NBFCs stopped lending post IL&FS. There is no liquidity available with regards to wholesale lending for the developer. And if that doesn't happen, and today's home buyer wants to touch and feel a product, he wants to wait till the building is ready. He doesn't want to take construction risk. So that's going to reduce supply, because one, liquidity is not there. we've seen all the migrant labor going back home. They're not going to come back in 2 months. It's at least going to be 3, 4, 5 months for the migrant labor to kind of come back. You can't do these large sites with 100 workers or 200 workers. In most large sites, you have 500,000, 2,000 workers working, and it's like a conveyor belt. You need multiple workers delivering at different points of time. So you can't just have 100 workers and then you finish a little bit of work, then you call the next worker 1 week later. So I think a massive supply shortage will happen, given both liquidity that developers, one, don't have the money to launch, developers don't have the confidence to launch, and also because of migrant labor issues. I also feel there will be design changes which will happen on the residential front. You will have more.
Yes, we'll come to that because there needs to be a reason, and of course, there's design is integral to that. But let's stick on to that migrants issue. Obviously, massive. It is going to touch upon the residential, the retail, as well as the commercial market. And Vinod, what is your opinion on it? How do you attract back the migrants into the cities?
So I think stability of their jobs, quality of living back when they come back to work, and a lot of mental safety, satisfaction that they won't be stranded in the middle of nowhere, because psychologically they've been beaten down by the last 2 months in the way their lifestyles have got disrupted. So certainly it's going to take them at least a quarter till they feel stable in their villages and they say, okay, I'm going to attempt to go back to cities. But at the same time, you must remember that I don't think more than 25 or 30% of the real supply will start construction in the next couple of months. You won't see large developments balloon out and say, let's start work and we need 100,000 laborers in a micro market to start work, because they won't start. Speculative supply is not going to come. New launches are not going to happen in a hurry. And whatever's half incomplete, and if they don't have commitments, that supply is going to get delayed. So it will balance off, in my view, and you will get people. Having said that,
Nayan has a point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. We've during the course of the last 2 months, I want to give our company's example. Most of the labor that we have has been on-roll labor rather than being, the sort of migrant or they've been with us for the last 5-7 years. We've supported them, throughout the projects. That I think has played a fantastic role. Last 2 months, they've been paid full salaries. They've been fed on the side. We are taking care of all the sanitation. There's a medical officer now appointed, and it's mandatory by the government now to have a corona officer on each side. I think these are the kind of steps where we can give, comfort to these people, more important than anything else, on job stability as well as health security. I think these two things, if we are taking care of, we've not seen, in fact, these people going back. We've seen more people getting added to our sites, which is a fantastic trend.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us are doing exactly that, because we value the brand and the reputation, and they are at our dependence, so to speak, currently, because they are housed on most of on the land sites where construction was going on. So all those protocols are already in place. In fact, further enhanced protocols for construction when it has slowly starting in Hyderabad, starting in Pune. We're seeing labor come back to work. We're already looking after them from a COVID distancing point of view, buying separate toolkits for each of the laborers, creating that whole protocol around not intermingling, etc., in a far more organized manner. So we are seeing work start back. But if I see on the macro level, there will be challenges, because you will have people who got disrupted or not got paid or gone away. So a few of us who have looked after labor will certainly be able to retain 20, 30, 40, 50% if they're lucky. But there will be, because it's the sowing season, all of these guys in any case go away 3rd week of May to their villages and come back 3rd week of June. How many come back 3rd week of June we need to see, and how much work starts 3rd week of June we need to see. So I think a quarter you will see a little bit of a sluggishness, but 1 quarter later, if things stabilize, you will see construction start back.
Mr. Menda, your opinion on this?
So my view is, I think, those who have gone back to their villages, and under the, I think, NEGRA scheme, where the government is guaranteed something like 250 to 60 rupees per person just to sit at home, and they've extended that period. So that is a minimum wage, a minimum guarantee he gets sitting at home. So if he looks at a job during harvest season in and around his village and gets something like 400, maybe he'll move from sitting at home to moving out into that village. And for him to come back into the city, keeping COVID, if it is still active, will ask for a much higher wage to move from his village into the town. No doubt the money which will be offered will need to be taking home and being offered has to be a lot more. So my belief is the cost of labor is going to go up in the short term. And unfortunately, once it goes up in the short term, it stays, because once you're used to a certain take home, they don't tend to step back on that number. So it's just going to increase costs.
Okay. That's a very interesting point that you make. And it is going to be a challenge to bring back those migrants into the cities. And it is monetary benefits that are going to be, at the end of the day, reeling them back in. But we'll take a break at this point in time. We'll also talk about the stimulus, 20 lakh crore stimulus that the government had announced. Has it impacted the real estate industry positively? And also taking a look at the niche sectors that could be advantaged from the situation. Welcome back. And like we were talking about, has the government really helped out with that doling out of the 20 lakh crore, much publicized stimulus? And has it touched upon every single segment of the real estate market? Ramesh, talk to us whether any substantial change has been made because of that. You'll have to unmute yourself.
So if you look at the last 5-6 years, this government has done some progressive stuff for real estate. The PMAY scheme, RERA, relaxation of FDI, bringing in those tax rebates for affordable housing. So good stuff they've done. But this time around, it's been quite disappointing. And I was speaking to some of the industry bodies over the last 1 month, and everybody was so confident that the government is going to do something over the last 1 week when these announcements were made. And it was very disappointing that the real estate sector just was not in the focus at all. And I checked with some of these industries bodies over the last 2 days, and they said the government spent so much of time with us. We were sitting on calls till 10 p.m. every night. And very surprising why nothing happened. I've been on calls with some of my colleagues from countries like Hong Kong and Singapore and Australia. Today, the government is giving big wage subsidies. Companies like ours, today we employ 12,000 full-time employees in India and 70,000 people off roles, which are our vendor roles. Now, my colleagues in Australia, Hong Kong, they're getting like 20 million, 10 million, 30 million just to pay the wages of these workers. Not the senior salaried people. So that's something the government can look at. I think the government needs to realize that this sector contributes employment for 6 crore people. And we keep forgetting that all the time, 6 crore people. And still there is hardly any focus. I think what the industry was expecting was at least a GST deferment for the next 6 months. Modification of GST for developers to claim input tax credit, one-time restructuring, which everybody was so confident will happen. It's been done in 2008-9. Why couldn't it be done now? One-time restructuring for developer loans. That demand was not met. More than ever before, I think home loans need to be made cheaper to drive demand, put more money in the hands of the people to go buy homes. So encourage migrant labor to kind of come back. Last evening, a developer was telling he's organizing alcohol and biryani for migrant workers. Still, they want to kind of go back. Now, these are some of the big problems which is being facing. There was at least some expectation that there would be removal of setting off of loss from house property against other heads of income. That will be removed. Again, that was not done. I think the government clearly needs to, you can't wait. You can't say, I'll make an announcement next month. The patient is already in the ICU. If you make the announcement next month, maybe it's going to be too late. The government needs to step in, make these announcements in the next 10 days. Extremely disappointing for the real estate sector. I haven't met a single person who would, maybe they may not say that on camera, but very disappointing what the government has done. This is all those things over the last 6 years.
Yeah. How does real estate look like from the residential point of view with regards to the stimulus that has been announced, especially the credit-linked subsidies that the government has?
See the 4-5 points that have been announced by the government. One which is a good point is they've given a 3 months to a 6-month extension for completion. As per RERA dates. I think that's a good step and well taken. They've also extended the CLSS subsidy, for another 1 year. I think that also is a good step. But there is also talks of a rental housing, the model of which is going to be released. I haven't seen it yet come out. Plus, there is today the RBI governor announced the 40 bips cut on the repo rate, as well as 30,000 crore special liquidity scheme that has been given to NBFCs. Now, out of all of these things, the problem is they are not attacking the root of the problem. They are all sort of going round and round, where the problem may be. I mean, these are band-aids which are being put, but the actual wound is not being addressed. So you give additional liquidity to NBFCs. You give a BIPS reduction to the, for the repo rate. But is that really translating to, lenders coming to us and sort of coming and saying that, okay, let's restructure or let's relook at this, how maybe we can give 1 year extension and focus towards completing the projects on time? That's not really, happened. And that has been the long-standing demand of our industry. For the past many years, it's been bleeding that please allow a one-time restructuring on net worth positive projects to happen so that a solution can be found rather than beating around the bush and talking about stress funds which don't get released or liquidity to NBFCs which don't eventually come back, into the lending. So I think that remains, that needs to be, addressed.
Mr. Menda, nothing for the commercial sector of real estate. Have you formed fora, charters sent out to the ministries? Any responses? Any hope? Any inkling of a hope from the government?
Okay, all of us live in hope. I think we have made 3 requests to the finance ministry and of course through all the ministries because commercial real estate, as you know, houses all the largest amount of tech companies which bring in a lot of foreign exchange to the country. So I think out of that, the first request we made to the government actually did not require fund allocation, but it just requires 2 amendments to be made. And the first one was simply that all foreign companies who are doing work in getting their work outsourced in India should make their rental payments in foreign currency only. That's a mandated, so that's requires a regulation change under the FEMA Act. And also the developers, because if those rents can come in foreign exchange, can raise cheaper ECB loans because of the foreign flow of foreign exchange coming in. So that actually just requires these 2 amendments to be done, but does not require any change in doesn't require any funding required from the government. That's the first request we made. The second one we made was to give it an infrastructure status. Similarly, if you give the IT parks which are completed as infrastructure status, again cheaper loans can be raised. All this will help in cross subsidizing, like you said, work from home. Clients will be walking out. Clients, multinationals will be under pressure to reduce costs, including on the rental side. Will help us to give them cheaper rents and so on and so forth. And the last one, which was actually fund based, was actually simply putting it, if you see that all these IT parks are purpose built for a specific multinational user. It's not built for ourselves. Now, in the normal course, in residential, if you sell an office building, you do get a GST set off. But in an office park, because 99% of our clients are only leasing out space, the government has not allowed the set off to happen from the rents that we get, even though so they ask us to pay the GST on the construction side, and whatever GST we collect on the rent is to be remitted separately. So our request is to allow us to set off the GST collected from the rents from what we have already remitted for the construction, and that itself will take about 6 years to recover back the GST from the rent collected, and hence will help again in some form of stimulus for the commercial real estate sector. So that's the 3 requests we made.
Okay, so directly the government has not offsetted all that had been required, a one-time restructuring of when you talk about loans, also talking about the GST deferrals, that has not happened, no other announcements. But indirectly, when you bring about institutional investments from foreign lands, making labor laws easier, state-wise, you talk about Uttar Pradesh, you talk about Gujarat, you talk about Maharashtra, all these things have been happening. So this is going to be providing an indirect stimulus to the real estate sector as well.
Yeah, so actually...
Okay, Mr. Jaggi, if you could take this, I'll come back to you, Mr. Raj.
Yeah, so, let me actually give credit to the government where they deserve it. I think over the last 3 years, we have seen the central government and the state governments make certain changes, which has made business easier in the industrial and warehousing segment. Many governments, especially the state governments, have changed land laws, where you actually can, kind of develop on agricultural land, conversion of land from agriculture to warehouse and industrial. They've made the policies very easy. The central government has actually made environment clearances very easy. I think that, so my view is that they have done a lot of positive for the industrial sector. I do agree with Raj that there's this one pending issue for the last 1 year we've been fighting again is for the GST input credit for us to receive. We haven't got it. The indirect stimulus, if you see over the last 60 days, there has been a tremendous activity from all state governments because all of them are now gunning to actually increase employment. And the best way to do that is actually industrialize. So you see actually various state governments, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Gujarat, changing the labor laws, making it more conducive for manufacturing and especially the overseas people coming in to make labor laws much cheaper. Karnataka has just recently changed their land laws, making actually a conversion of land from agriculture to warehousing a much easier process, which was earlier on a 3-year process. They made it into a 30-day process. And what we are also finding is each state government has put in a special nodule body just to attract foreign direct investment into their state. And they are also opening up their land banks. For example, Maharashtra has just announced 40,000 hectares that is going to be available for any company that wants to come into Maharashtra, and land will be given to them at very reasonable prices. So I think indirectly, there is a lot of stimulus that the state governments are actually doing. And I think the main reason is to attract FDI, which indirectly boosts employment within our country, right? So I think to me,
absolutely,
an indirect stimulus. I'm just making, I think it's on the positive side, to that extent with the government.
Vinod, you wanted to come in also the point that he's made a privatization, a complete overhaul when it comes to airlines, when it comes to defense. Barring those 4 key sectors, it's completely privatized. That is going to be the 1991 for India, for the economy. 2020 is going to be the new 1991.
Yeah, so let's hope for that, and let's see how much investment really comes into these sectors, because once you have visibility, when you have blue sky, you'll have capital return back for sure. Till then, there will be only evaluation. Just to add to what Raj said and Rajesh said, primarily what's important is the commercial real estate. When you look at what we build, 80% of that is technology jobs in India. And on an average, you get 1,500 jobs directly created per acre of occupancy. So if you build 46 million square feet worth of space last year, which was absorbed by just tech companies alone, you would have managed 400,000 jobs additionally for the country. So besides the revenue the government is making, the number of jobs it's creating is phenomenal for the economy. So even if you just keep that as an additional counter for local GDPs to get kind of bloom out of all of this and blossom, you need to pay far more attention to these jobs. Otherwise, they will also go away. So all of that stimulus is a layer beneath. But what is really fundamental for the economy is jobs. And all of these jobs are getting created for all the millennials that are coming out of freshly out of colleges and getting into these large campuses. And all the large international companies find it really conducive to attract that talent and build upon that. And India still today is a huge arbitrage advantage of cost compared to the US. So you're saving 80-90% of your cost per candidate that works on a desk in India versus working in the US. And that's fueling the economy. So it needs to be really looked at with a different lens.
Okay, let's set our focus to the design, the reset that is going to happen in commercial, retail, as well as homes as well, real estate, and talk about residential. Ramesh, come in over here and talk to me about, obviously there is going to be more and more of contactless access, having AI, having complete automation when you're sitting at your home. You would want to have minimum access to outside world as well. And this, and the Internet of Things, obviously moving towards that direction. So it's only going to get just hastened now with this coronavirus pandemic coming in.
There's going to be a lot more importance given on aspects like safety, on wellness, on hygiene. Going forward, air quality would be debated more than ever before. Thermal health, moisture, humidity, ventilation, air circulation. All these become very important. Companies and developers need to look at how they can eliminate touch points, how they could improve air circulation becomes very important. I think what will also happen on the design front is companies have to start thinking of how do we limit usage of buildings of like elevators, for example. Today, all elevators are packed. How do you solve that? Do you have staggered shift patterns? That's something you need to look at. In terms of food service, most IT parks provide food today. Do you move from self service to packaged foods? That's again going to be there. There's going to be some amount of extra money which you need to spend on screening protocols, which again will need design changes. Some companies we know are already thinking of employee proximity mapping. How do you kind of make sure that social distancing of 2 meters is done, and mapping of that using some amount of technology? I think overall, even the seating arrangements have to be modified. Overall, 2, 3 other big things will happen. One is de-densification. If companies are looking at 70 to 80 square foot per person, we believe that'll go back to 100 square foot per person, which was the norm back in 2008-9. That's something which is going to happen. And we also believe companies would start looking at deconsolidation. Not having all their eggs in one basket in one big IT park, maybe look at 3 different facilities in the same city. So these are some of the things I think corporates would do from a design change maker.
Mr. Mehta, take this over here. Technology, how integral a part would that start playing? I'll come back. I'll come to you, Nair. Let Mr. Mehta finish then.
Okay, I think, at RMC, we already had an app called a MEX app, which is actually earlier designed to give convenience to all the users of our parks. Basically, it's simply putting it for, ordering food, for, ordering your Ola and so on and so forth. Now, coincidentally, that app also has now been updated, with accesses, so that you can, through your phone app, also access, once you enter an elevator, as to which floor you want to go to. Access to, contactless accesses were anyway being provided through our app. So it just needed to be enhanced, and including a section on contact tracing, so that, because if you entered a food court on a particular day, it also helped us to find out who else has entered the food court on that day. And if there is any case that is reported, it's easy for us to, rewind the whole thing back to that particular date and see at that time how many people were sitting in and around this person. So even the table which the person is being allotted in the restaurant or in the food court in our parks, now they're mapping it and keeping a record of it, so that it's easy to rewind at that time, and in fact even play off the. We're putting a lot more recording systems on the cameras, so that you can go back and do contact tracing, because that's still going to be a big thing till we find a solution for this. So on the tech side, of course, on the infrastructure side, a lot of other things are done, but we find that just extending our MEX app, which we already have, for the convenience of our clients with these few features, will make it easier to make it a safe environment to work in.
Then you wanted to come in, especially this is going to be a complete disruption in the market. Already, residential was going that way. This is only going to hasten the process.
No, actually, I wanted to add to what Ramesh ji was saying earlier, about the design changes.
Okay,
of course, every segment is
the design
getting,
changes.
Every segment is getting affected differently. I think, for example, this is my perception. It may be different for different micro markets.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of the standalone commercial plots or these SEO type of developments may see favor, for the next 1 or 2 years, as compared to sort of build shopping malls or existing shopping malls. I do believe, however, shopping malls or office developments 2 years away in the future will continue to to be stable in the coming times. However, there's one very interesting concept that we are working on and which we are looking at launching very, very soon. These are going to be the first corona-free farmhouses that you will see coming up in Delhi. And this is going to be as per a government scheme of farmhouses where we want to take our consumers back into the past, or connect with nature on a level where, their vegetables can completely be homegrown at their farm. Their poultry and their dairy products can completely be homegrown at their farm. The solar electricity would be there, for them to have zero dependence upon the government electricity, as well as the water is completely taken from the ground and recharged back into the ground 100%. So there's 100% self-sustainability, in the community. And this is something that we are working on. It's going to be out in the market very, very soon. We're already seeing a great response, from consumers, but these are going to be like corona-free farmhouses where we want people to, we want this to be disconnected from the rest of the world to as much extent as possible. And of course, some level of sanitization for materials and men when they move in and out.
I think that's a brilliant concept, and I think people will take to it, especially now, being the need of the hour. But Mr. Jaggi, talk to us. We've covered an expanse of things over here. The government stimuluses. We talk about what's the future going to look like, commercial, retail, residential. Also, which are the hit points, which are the positive points over here. But overall, what is that gut feeling that you get? Perhaps 6 months, 10 months down the line, how's the market going to react? How exactly can the dynamics be changed to ensure this boom that was in the commercial estate market continues?
So, I'll just actually kind of just put in a nutshell. To me personally, I think 2020 is a washout as far as I'm concerned. That's the short and medium term. But I'm hoping that whether there's a vaccine or a medicine or we live with COVID, I think the growth story in India is there to be. I think that if you look at the three asset classes, in my view, people want to get out, people want to go to their office, people want to interact. That's the way we will do business in the world. There will be a certain section that will be staying home, and that's a forceful way of staying home. Some companies may devise a efficiency by staying home, but I think that my view is that the commercial sector, I think that is going to be buoyant in my view. Residential, again, I think that the next 2 to 3 quarters, they may be pain. But if you look at mid-segment and affordable housing, I think more actually because of COVID, people will want to secure themselves with a property in hand rather than actually renting out. That's my view on residential. On industrial and warehousing, again, I think 2020 is going to be slow. But when I look at this sector, I think there's a tremendous growth opportunity, both in the warehousing and industrial sector. If the government plays its cards right, I think there's a huge amount of manufacturing that it can attract from Southeast Asia. Then there is no stopping for India to actually become the most desired manufacturing destination.
Yeah, absolutely. We know your points.
So I think what's the most important all of this is, it's very convenient to predict now because you're not going to be accountable for a million predictions that are coming on a daily basis. I think there's a dark cloud of fear around everything that we're seeing. You pull that fear away and everything's going to come back because there is a whole pent-up demand in everyone's internal belly to actually go and consume. But you are going to see, like I mentioned earlier, you will see at least 2020, 21 till March of 21 as something that we are going to forget very easily. Having said that, long term, I think businesses will bounce back, some slower than the other businesses. Obviously, you have travel and tourism and airlines and all of that will take longer to come back through. The minute that fear goes away, we see a cure in sight or we bend the curve with immunization or whichever way each country adapts, you will see consumption come back and then you'll see business come back. So at least 9 months, maximum between 12 months, you will see things change rapidly.
Ramesh, what are your views? How long do you see this corona impact last within our country, especially on the real estate sector?
So like Vinod said, it's not going to be easy to predict. What if 3 months later we have a relapse? We've seen that in some countries where we thought things were getting better. So it's going to be very difficult to, but very overall, very high level feel. I think industrial and office would come back in a sharp V. So it'll kind of come back fast. Residential will come back a little slow than that. And retail and hotels would be more like a U-shaped recovery, and it'll take some more time to reach there. But like all the panelists said, Raj spoke about it, Rajesh spoke about it, Vinod spoke about it. I think India's long-term story is very, very strong. And we've already started seeing some companies, especially in the industrial world, coming back and say that can we start looking at space. We are looking at moving out of some of those other countries where they want to de-risk themselves. We also believe data centers as an asset class will do well in the next.
Absolutely. Yes, that is one ray of hope over there, and a lucrative business at that. But Mr. Mehta, what's the positivity that you have got in 2 months sitting at home, figuring things out? What's your outlook like?
So, being an eternal optimist, this is actually given us a time to think about how else we are going to do. Luckily, as an organization, we are never into this premium segment of offices, catering to the wannabe, locations. We were always into where the mass consumers were there. And even though, whatever the situation may be, either the situation may be conducive in the next 2 months or, relapse as the case may be, but the demand is not going anywhere. In fact, it will increase all the more because, I'm willing to bet on the fact that since the companies will be under pressure to cut costs overseas, they'll have to look at one of the places they look at cutting costs is on the IT side. And India offers a cheaper alternative on the IT side to do cost cutting. So it is just a matter of time. Maybe in the next 9 months, you'll see more demand getting outsourced back into India. I'm quite bullish on the work that is going to happen because India is the only country that offers, a talent of an English-speaking, English-thinking talent to support the rest of the world, which requires the whole work to be done in English.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And Nayan, before I wrap this up, what do you have to say about this entire crisis, and what is the positive thing that you're taking back from it?
So I'm not going to talk about what I predict because honestly I can't predict. I don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to go. But I know two things, and that is how to turn it around into an opportunity. And I'm going to share something very personal with you, and it may sound a little anecdotal. Over the past 2 months, I've lost 10 kgs because I know I want to be in my best shape whenever I have to fight coronavirus.
I think that's the best outcome one could.
And I recommend that everybody focus towards, their health improvement, especially now that we have the time. And that's the only medicine that we know how to fight coronavirus right now, apart from the precautions, that we are taking. The second very important fact I want to tell you, 3 days before Amazon opened up their deliveries in New Delhi, I think I must have shopped for about 50 to 60,000 rupees. I just want to leave this with the thought that the consumers now, and I believe that, when I was looking at the shopping and everything, I could see, going out of stock. So that also shows you that, when the things do get back on track, there is a very, very strong consumer trend, and they can, consumers can come back with a vengeance, and we've seen some precedents in China and US. I've heard of some stories where, the real estate has bounced back really sharply. And, there's been some crazy buying going around, a lot of products. So we never know. If the coronavirus is getting better, it may end up as a better situation for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Always ending on a high note. Here's all of you. You're doing tremendous work. Obviously, right now it's a slump, but then you all have to get together and just fight it out. And thanks for having all of you on the broadcast. Some very, very insightful views when it comes to the real estate sector. We'll call you back again after a few weeks, gentlemen, because we are going to be talking about how exactly have the curves moved ever since the lockdown has been lifted. This is phase 4. But for now, we'll take a break. Thank you for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you, Megha.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. It was lovely talking to you all. Tremendous.
Thank you.
And I think we should be doing this again in the next weeks, just to understand how the markets are going. What's the positive coming out of it? What's the negative coming out of it? how the graph moves from here on. But thank you so much for your time.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.